video is about one of the other repos that you need to have on GitHub. And I named the repo lab. And you can make it private, you can make it public, but I'm going to talk about why you have one and why you need one. So here we are over on my virtual machine, and you can see if you go into my repos directory, GitHub, we talk about organizing it so you don't have naming collisions. And then inside of here, we talked about dot files. There's a full video on dot files. It doesn't go break it down, but it talks about why to have a dot files repo. So this is, I suppose, the second of at least 2 videos about the repos I think everybody should have. There's probably, I'm thinking there's probably 4 essential repos, and I'll make another video about that. But the one today is about something called the lab, right? And I'm actually going to just clone it right away. I'm not going to even spend some time. If you want to see how to do the clone function, there's a video on that. If I could type it. Why can't I type today? That's not the copy, I promise. Uh-oh, I have some stuff I haven't installed yet. So you need to do GitHub installer. So you're going to get to see, you're getting a bonus here. I'm going to go into my installer. I talk about this installer in the other dot files video. Please watch that. Install GH. I'm going to run that. And run the password for my local system, and we're going to install the GitHub command line tool, which is GH is the command name. All right, so now that that's all installed, we can go back to wherever I was. So I guess that's not too far. Let's go back into what is it? Repos, tab, github.com, RWX. Okay, so now let's do that. Clone. Again, there's a video on clone. Go watch clone lab. Oh, it's going to want me to get a token. Yeah, well, I probably should go ahead and do that. So let's try that. GHauth login. Probably time for me to do that. GitHub. We're going to use which preferred. I want to use SSH. Generate a new SSH key and add it to your GitHub account. I mean, I kind of want to use the one that's already there, but let's go ahead and do that. Let me make sure that I'm not doing anything. Enter the passphrase for your SSH key. Okay. Title for your SSH key. Log in with a web browser. I can't do that because this is not a desktop. Paste authentication token. Paste your authentication token. So I have to go make one really quick. So I'm going on GitHub. This will have to be covered in a different video. GitHub.com/RWXROB/ and I'm going to do it really quickly here. I wish I could trim this out of the video, but it doesn't take too long. I'm going into GitHub for me. I'm clicking on my personal thing. I'm clicking on, this is a video. Let's do a separate video on this. Clicking on settings and then going to security keys, SSH and GPG keys, and actually already have an SSH GitHub CLI one, which was on my other VM. So we're going to go ahead and add a new one. You can't add more than one, obviously. New SSH key. I'm not going to say what it's called. And stuff. So, let's see. Paste your authentication. Yeah. Okay. Give me a second here. Whoops. I'm mixing up my things. I'm mixing up my things. This is authentication tokens are different than SSH tokens, obviously. Generate a new token. This will have to be a different video, but you're gonna have to fast forward past this. Oh, right. Oh, is it going to need my passkey? Yeah, I think it is. It is. So this here is a passkey. This here is a YubiKey. I had something to choose. If you're not using that, you're asking for trouble. I'm not showing you what I'm doing because reasons, obviously. Security key. All right, now I'm authorized. And expiration date 30 days or whatever. I tend to like mine to expire relatively frequently because, once somebody gets a hold of that key, you can't take it back. Like, you can, but I don't know, it just depends on what you want to do and how much permissions you want to give it. I could have done this through SSH, but in this case, I'm using GitHub to do the authentication. So I'm using tokens, OAuth tokens for that. I promise we'll get to the lab thing. The point of this video is actually the lab itself, not the generation of all of this stuff. So I'm going to go ahead and paste that. It's funny because I use the code from that GitHub prompter for the token. I actually use that code someplace in our code to practice the whole printing of the key and everything. Let me show you what I mean. So let me close these out, make sure there's nothing in my base paste buffer. Yeah. Okay. So here we go. So I went ahead and pasted this in, and it put it into a different thing. And now I should be able to do repo list and stuff. Okay, so here's all my repos using GitHub, and then we can do the lookup. We already did the auth, so let's do the clone lab. And now clone lab should work. Do you want to connect? Yes, I do. It's the first time connecting, so that's okay. And now we have a lab, and you can look at the clone video. I mean, the clone function video to see why it changed me into lab and everything. So here we're back on topic. We are doing the lab, right? The lab directory is under RWXROB, and this is a repo. You can make it your own private. You can make it public. Having recently seen some of the AI that scores people based on their GitHub profile, I would tell most people to make their lab private. Because most people will want their lab to be private because they don't want to be judged by all of the things that are going to evaluate their ability to code based on their GitHub profile and their pay and the stuff that's out there. I don't particularly care. I've got a great job. I'll retire before I leave this job. And I already know I'm fine and I could get a job. But if you are trying to break into the industry, then having this lab directory and this lab repo be private is probably the right thing to do. Your dot files and your CV and your RWX, your account repo should probably be public for lots of all the regular reasons, right? You want people to go out there and see how awesome you are, and you don't have you deliberately don't have a LinkedIn account for all the reasons that I ranted very loudly about in another video. Make sure you watch the video. Go out today and watch the video about why having a LinkedIn account can actually hurt your career. And I'm going to leave it right there. That's the clickbait FOMO I'm going to give you right now. You can actually damage your career by having a LinkedIn account. If you don't know what I'm talking about, at least go consider what I have to say about LinkedIn and watch that video. Okay, that's the only warning I'm going to say about that. The lab directory is therefore much more important than LinkedIn because this contains the things that you're experimenting with, right? Now, if you actually curate what's in your lab directory and you make sure that it's well, manicured, then it's a good thing to have because you can actually show what you've been experimenting with and what you've been messing around with, right? It's kind of like, and as long as you put like a big old disclaimer here, unfortunately AI is never going to see that disclaimer, and that makes it kind of questionable about whether it should be public or private. But if you trust that a human is going to actually look at it, then you can put, this is where the learning happens. Learning happens in the lab, not the lecture hall. That's my own quote. Based on my experience with calculus, actually, upper level, 300 level calculus in college. The lecturer would get up there, ba, 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 ba. This is a lecturer, ba, 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 ba. And then I would go to the lab I would go to the lab and I would talk to the TA, and they would help me through the homework, and they would help me understand the concepts because it was experimenting there, and they were super happy to show me that specific technique and sort of flex about how awesome they were at calculus. The lecturer just wants to flex and hear themselves up on the auditorium stage. Nobody cares. So, learning happens in the lab, and you can demonstrate that you are actively committed to learning by having a lab repo. If you have a lab repo, you can go in there, you can try different things. And you can talk about it in your Zettelkasten if you have one of those, which is one of the 4 or 5 repos you should probably have. If you don't have a Zettelkasten, make sure it's notes or something. And whether that's public or not is up to you. It's a separate topic. I've gone back and forth on that a lot. Anyway, so what is in here? Okay, so the lab repo is specifically for you to try out new things. So for example, today I am about to try out I need to practice some parsing and some looping. So I'll carve out a spot in my lab, and I'll go in there and I'll try to mess with it. So for example, let me give you a quick example. I was messing with generics like 2 years ago in Go, using the specified generic stuff, and you can see me here just messing around with basic generics just to try to even see what it looked like, right? And I actually, after this, I went on to I ended up cloning an entire repo called Awesome Go, which links to all of the further lab exploration. And this is kind of an important point because you don't have to just put all of your stuff in lab, right? So my little experimentation there inside of my lab turned into, an entire series of repos based on data structures using generics, which are all now built into Go standard libraries. So they're really not useful anymore. Let me show you. Give me a see if I can find it. I think Strux is called. Where are you? There it is. So there it goes. Hybrid data structures and generics. So why am I talking about yet another repo? Because this is a repo, and I'll go ahead and clone it because it's so easy to clone with the clone function. Please watch the video. Clone, boom. Boom, there my entire repo is down. And I can see here that I've created several data structures, traditional data types for my experimentational purposes. And they're all linked here. You can go read them and see about them. I would not use them. I actually use tree in a lot of things, which is this is really, really freaking cool. If you want to get into any kind of parsing of, if you want to get into any language, like writing your own language syntax and that kind of thing, like I did with Pagan, then you can write it into a tree, and I have that here. So the point is that this repo, we kind of branched off from my lab. So I did lab experimentation to kind of get a feel for it that I'm happy to share with others in my case. And then that became, a real full-blown experimentation of use of generics and writing my entire, my own, node descent parser, node tree traversing algorithms and stuff like that in its own repo. Now, this repo is really baked, and I made sure that it was public and it was published. Somebody's going to look at it and go, why do you even have this thing? You really don't need it. It's all sort of built in now. I think, well, because, look at the date on it. Again, GitHub is there to kind of flex the simplicity to put your stuff. And in this case, I can show that at least at that moment, I had a really solid handle of how to use generics and why generics would actually be of value. That's actually why I made this thing. Golang got generics, and before that I used to kind of poo-poo on generics. I was like, why do we need them? We don't really need them. We got, the unnamed, untyped interface. And I was like, and then somebody said, well, it's mostly like when you want to do things like traditional data structures and algorithms, and you want to parse things like, oh, I don't know, sort a slice or do, create a node tree, create all the code which I have done here for a node tree, and do all sorts of traversing and walking the node tree without consideration for the value of each one of those nodes, being able to make it a tree of integers, or a tree of custom structs, or a tree of booleans, for God's sake. Doesn't matter. So once I was able to truly go through all of this code, I was like, oh my God, generics are awesome. Thank God we have them. And I, I was able, through the experimentation, I was able to kind of really get on board with why we needed generics. And everybody out there who's a senior software engineer is looking at me, they're looking down their nose at me like, yeah. But I'm not a senior software engineer. I can write great code and I love parsing code and writing code, but I'm more of an operations person who knows how to code. And I spend all my time coding practical things, not things that are going to get me to pass, a leak code interview. That's just me. So yeah, I did buy the algorithms book and all that and got into it when it became necessary. Oh, I don't know, such as when you want to change the value of a YAML type. That's a little tickler because there's going to be another video about how to do that. You might, that's right. Did you guys know that YAML has a YAML.node? Yeah. So, and you can, if you can actually walk that thing and then you can print it and it'll be marshaled as YAML. So if you want to do YAML manipulation, it's absolutely amazing for that. Why does this have to do with the lab? Because these are all experiments that started in the lab. Okay. And that sounded like, an episode of Frankenstein's Monster or something, but these are all things that started in the lab. So the takeaway of this video is make a lab repo, private or public, start putting things in there. And a couple little caveats. A lot of times the things you're going to want to test are, designed to be used in a singular repo. Let me give you an example of that. Go, for example, it can do multiple modules in a single Go repo, but it is not normally idiomatic. There are many, many monorepos that have multiple Go modules in them. And we're not going to get into the fight about whether you should be, Mr. Monolith or not. That's a huge, huge debate, which we are not going to have right now. But the fact that you can have modules, you don't have to have one module per Go repo, right? And even one package under that, that you can have multiple. So if you're doing Go development, you'll see that there are a lot of stuff in here. Now I chose, because just for the sake of ease of stuff, did I not? Oh, maybe I didn't. I don't know. I think some of these have it and some don't. Let me check the generics out. I mean, it doesn't even have to be a module, right? Who says they have to install this stuff, right? A lot of this stuff looks like I have not done. I'm trying to find if there's a module in here. Git grep. You guys know about Git grep? Learn about it. It's really awesome. You ever try to use grep in a Git repo and you're trying to eliminate all the stuff in the .grep directory? I need to make a video about that. In the .git directory, Git grep does that exact thing, and it colorifies it, and it sends it to your pager. So, yeah, that needs a video. Git grep go.mod. I see if there's a go mod here. It does look like, no, that's not what I want. That's not what I want. I want to find derp. Okay. Name go.mod. Okay, so yeah, we have a bunch of Go mods here. So each one of these is a different Go module. So the caveat I was trying to tell you, if you're going to have a singular lab repo, is that you might want to just remember to do, if you're going to have separate Go modules. You can do that. Sometimes you're just checking out to see whether a function works or something, and then you can just try that in a main.go. It doesn't matter. So that is the end of that video. Consider having a lab repo, and we'd love to hear you talk about it. Again, plug for Beginner Boost on May the 4th. We generally meet on Sundays. Please check us out. Come on in and join our community. Maybe you have a better way to do this, so you can let me know. Thank you.